Hi everyone, I thought I'd make a video for YouTube talking about books. Got a big stack of books here. Thought I'd talk about some books I've read recently, and then I've got a few books that I'm excited to read as well. I read quite a lot. I have a long commute to work, so I get about 2 hours of reading time in every day, which is why I think I'm able to read so many books. So yeah, just wanted to put that out there. I don't just spend all of my time reading. The train takes a long time, so yeah, it gives me time to read and just get through lots of books. So I thought I'd start with what I'm reading at the moment. The Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes. These are just classic. I have a set of like every single Arthur Conan Doyle Sherlock Holmes. This is number 4. This one's got, this one has at the end, it's the final problem, which is the one where Holmes dies. But the Musgrave Ritual is the one that I just read, and I think that that's a good one. It's kind of him talking about a past case that Watson doesn't know about. So yeah, that's fun. I love Sherlock Holmes, and I feel like I want to read Sherlock Holmes every year. So I'm so grateful I have this set of books that I can kind of dip in and out of. So that's that one. Let's just start a little pile. So I have 2 books here now. This is The King of Scars duology by Leigh Bardugo. The first one is King of Scars, got nice covers, and the second one is Rule of Wolves. These 2 are like a spin-off series from her, or they're set in her Grishaverse. I don't know how you say it. I say Grisha in my head, but I think it's Grisha, from what I understand. Anyway, it's part of the Shadow and Bone world, and these have some characters that are in the Shadow and Bone books, but they kind of are like a deep dive into what happens after the Shadow and Bone trilogy. But that's a bookmark. I love her writing. I've read all of her books this year. They're just she writes such likable characters. If you read her books, you'll fall in love with the characters. They're so well written. They're very complex characters, and they're flawed, but you love them. So I read these 2 pretty much back to back. Rule of Wolves only just came out in paperback, but I pre-ordered the paperback copy so I could read it as soon as possible, and I'm very glad that I did that. The Six of Crows trilogy by Leigh Bardugo is, I think that's my favourite of her books. Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, those are great as well. They're very action-packed. Six of Crows is kind of like Ocean's 11, like a heist, which I'm quite partial to a heist film. Six of Crows is good. And these 2 are a bit more a bit darker. It's kind of civil war and magical goings on. But yeah, they're great. I'm glad I've been able to read those. Then I've got My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This is really good. I read The Only Good Indians. I think there's a tiny picture on the back of The Only Good Indians. I read that last year, and I feel like the way that Stephen Graham Jones writes is very stream of consciousness. And in The Only Good Indians, I kept getting to points where I was like, wait, what's going on? This one is not so much like that. I found it a little bit like that, but not as much. This book is like an homage to slasher films. So if you like classic horror slasher, like Halloween and Friday the 13th and Scream and Nightmare on Elm Street, this is the book for you. The main character is very obsessed with slashers, and that's kind of the premise, in a way, that she thinks that there's going to be a slasher film is going to kind of be enacted in her town, and she's kind of becomes obsessed with that. And it has a lot about the final girl trope, which the main character is fundamentally a believer of, but doesn't believe that she herself is the final girl. Anyway, it's very good. It has a punchy ending, and I found out that it's the first in a trilogy. The second one is coming out next year, called Don't Fear the Reaper, which I think is a good title. And it's going to be part of the trilogy. It's going to be called the Lake Witch trilogy, which I think is cool. So yeah, I'll definitely read the next one, and I guess the third as well when that eventually comes out. Then this one is Death by Landscape by Elvia Wilke. This is a collection of essays, all about, I kind of was drawn to it because the premise made it sound like they were all about weird fiction. Some of them are, but she also goes into like LARPing. There's an essay about LARPing and about trauma and what's this here? Literary world building projects, it says on the back. There's also quite a lot about like religious writing in a way, like from, I don't know, like the 15th century or whatever. It's very interesting. I really enjoyed the articles, or essays rather, about weird fiction. There's some that I mentioned that I have read, like the Southern Reach trilogy by Jeff Vandermeer, but there's some things that are mentioned in here that I'd never heard of, so I'll definitely be looking those up. That's good. And Elvia Wilke has written a fiction book called Oval, which I think I would like to read. It sounds very interesting. I think it's kind of about like an eco commune in Berlin, but it's like set in the future. I don't know. It sounds good. What else? This is The Listeners by Jordan Tannahill. I was initially disappointed to find out that Jordan Tannahill is a man. I don't know why I thought that this was by a woman. I guess the protagonist is a woman and it's written in the first person, so I just assumed. This is interesting. It's about a woman who starts to hear a low hum, and nobody else she knows can hear it. And then she joins like a self-help group of people in her neighborhood who can also hear this hum, and it's kind of becomes a bit more like a cult. It was good, but I have to say I wasn't a massive fan of the ending. It kind of annoyed me. I finished it late at night and it kept me up thinking about the ending. So yeah, but I would recommend it. I think it was good. Then I have this one was so good, Salt Lake by, what's her name, Lulu Allison. This was longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction. I don't know if it made the shortlist actually, and if it didn't, it seems like such a shame. This feels very prophetic. It's set in the future, and basically it's set in the UK, and everybody lives in London. Nobody lives in the countryside. All of the countryside is abandoned, and like there's no cars. Cars are banned because, you know, it's kind of an environmental catastrophe book. And there's one of the main characters is kind of in search of finding information about her mother who died in a terrorist attack. And yeah, it's kind of, that's the story unfolds through her and through another character who we meet as a child, and then follow him throughout the book kind of to the end of his life. It's difficult to describe. I don't know. This one was so good. I think this one's a little hard to get a hold of. The publisher is Unbound, and they're like a crowd-funded publishing house. So I think they can only do limited print runs because of that. But if you can find it, it's really good. And then this one was crazy. I don't know how to even review this book. Like A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. I'm very lucky to have the US edition of this because the UK cover is trash compared to this amazing cover. This is like a cannibalism novel. It's also on the back, it says it's kind of like a satire of early foodieism, which I don't really know that much about early foodieism. The main character is a woman who is a food writer, and it's kind of written in a way that she has kind of these hungers that she can't satisfy, and so she ends up committing murders and becoming a cannibal, which is crazy. And she's like writing it as a memoir from prison, which is an interesting way to do it. I think I read this I had COVID and I read this like just after, and so I was in a bit of a haze still, and was reading it kind of like, oh my god, what is happening? It was quite like, it's quite gory, it's a bit disturbing, as you can imagine, you know, cannibal themes, but it is also a good read. It's very well written. Kind of almost makes you, I don't know, you can't believe that the author has not experienced all of those things because she writes about them so well. Okay, lastly, I have the new Ben Aaronovitch, Amongst Our Weapons. This is a Rivers of London novel. I think this is number 10 in the Rivers of London series now, not counting the novellas. I went to see him speak last year and he was very funny and like entertaining. This one, I can never remember what they're about. I read them so fast. I read this in like 2 days, but they're always great to like reread when you want something easy to reread as well. Like they're very fast paced and there's lots going on. If you don't know about the Rivers of London books, the kind of basic concept of them is that the main character, Peter Grant, is, in the first book, he's just qualified as a police constable, as like a uniformed police officer in London, and he is picked up by a specialist branch of the Met Police who deal with magic. And so he starts to learn magic and deals with all of the like magical cases, and there's like vampires and monsters and like bad wizards. They sound kind of lame, but they're very well written, very well researched books, and they're great for people who love London. Like in the second book, Moon Over Soho, there is a on foot chase through Soho, and the way that it's written, like you could follow it if you wanted to. It's like you're being told what streets he turns down and like which way he runs down the streets and stuff, which is quite cool. This one has mention of, it starts at the London Silver Vaults, which is a very cool place that you can actually go and visit that I didn't know existed, which is it's like an underground shopping mall essentially, but every single shop sells silver items, and it says on the back it has the largest collection of silver for sale in the world, which I don't know, it's cool that exists in London. So yeah, this one's good. I managed to get the paperback. I think the paperback is not out yet. I bought this right at the end of July. I think the paperback doesn't come out until the end of September, but the shop who had this, they told me that sometimes these paperback copies are, it's like a large format paperback. It's a bit bigger than a regular one. They are sometimes made for airports, apparently. So it was cool to be able to get my hands on this and not have to lug around the the hardback, because the hardback was very expensive. It was almost £20, and I have all of his others in like mass market paperback, so it seemed silly to buy such a big hardback book. Anyway, okay, so yeah, that's what I've read recently. There's a few other things that I haven't pulled out, like I reread some of the Rivers of London when I was sick, and I also have recently read Picnic at Hanging Rock. I'm just looking at my list. And The Langoliers by Stephen King. That was really good, actually. But that's kind of, yeah, the past few months worth of reading have been this. Okay, now I have my little stack here of things that I'm excited to read. Oops. Okay. So first up, I have Storyland by Amy Jeffs. This is a really nice edition as well. It's the ones that it's got like a, oh, it's actually a map. Oh, I love a good map. This is a map of Britain. Yeah, so this is like, it's well, fiction or non-fiction, you decide. It's called, the subtitle is A New Mythology of Britain. So it's all about like British folklore and mythology, which is interesting. I don't really know much about that. Like, I'm a big fan of Greek mythology, but British mythology is not something I know very much about, so I don't know, I'm excited to get into this one. And it's got some woodcut illustrations in, here's one, that are by the author, I believe, but they're very nice. And then I got this at the same time as Storyland, The Animals in That Country by Laura Jean McKay. This won an Arthur C. Clarke Award. This one sounds really cool. It's about a pandemic that if the symptom is that you can understand the language of animals. So yeah, that seems like a pretty cool concept. I think it's probably going to be a little bit like a Jeff Vandermeer novel. Hopefully it's good. I think it should be if it's won that award. We shall see. Then I have here The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. He is a great horror writer. He wrote My Best Friend's Exorcism, which I think is quite a famous one. But I read The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by him. I think I might have read it right at the beginning of last year. That was so good. It was quite gory, and like some bits of it were a little bit hard to read because I was a little bit kind of like I think that was kind of the first like horror book that I had read, and then now this year I've read a lot more. But this one, again, like My Heart is a Chainsaw, I think this plays on there's a quote from Stephen Graham Jones on the back. I'll read it to you. It says, "Pray for morning, wish for speed, and be as quiet as you can. It doesn't matter. Grady Hendrix's The Final Girl Support Group already knows where you live and breathe." So I think this kind of, again, like plays on the kind of tropes of like Scream and Halloween and things like that with The Final Girl. And it's about a group of women who have all been final girls in different what's the word, spree killings, and now somebody's back and they're getting picked off one by one, and I don't know, I think it's going to be good. It has some interesting, some of the ways that it's written, it's like there's like a letter there, and then this other stuff. There's like a newspaper article or like a magazine article. I think those will like feed into the story, but it's cool to kind of slightly different way of adding information. And then lastly, I have this huge book. This is Red Comet by, what's her name? Heather Clark. The subheading of the book is The Short Life and Blazing Art of Sylvia Plath. and here on the cover there's a quote from Ali Smith, surely the definitive biography of Sylvia Plath, which seems like high praise. Also, it was a finalist for the Pulitzer, which I guess, you know, it's pretty highbrow. But I've been waiting for this to be out in paperback for like 2 years. It came out in 2020 in hardback, but the hardback was like £35 because this is over 1,000 pages. So, and also like it weighs a ton. I'm not gonna be able to carry this around with me. And the hardback would have just been a ridiculous sized book to try and carry around. I think this is one that's like sit at my desk and read it, because it's very, very heavy and very dense. I love Sylvia Plath, as I'm sure many people do, but I've read her journals in the past few years, and her letters home I've read maybe a couple of times. Yeah, I love her, and I kind of love her personal writing more than her like poetry or her novel. So yeah, this should be interesting. There's a lot to get through, so I think it's going to be a what's the word? A slow read. I don't know. Like something that's going to take me a long time to get through this. It's going to be on the back burner. That's what I mean. I'm going to kind of dip in and out of it. I think it's not something that's feasible to just sit and plow through in like as like one single book, if that makes sense. Maybe I'll do like a chapter a month or something. Let's see the contents page. Yeah, the chapters are about 20 pages, so maybe every couple of weeks I'll read a chapter. Yeah, that's exciting. I'm really happy I was able to get this. I got it from my local Waterstones, but it looked like they had it in stock in lots of places, and I went into the Foyles on Charing Cross Road a couple of weeks ago and they had this too, just on the shelf, which I was quite excited to see, with the literary biographies, if you want to try and find it. Yeah, that's that's everything. Thank you for watching and for listening and hanging out with me talk about books in a slightly unhinged way. Yeah, I hopefully will be making more videos like this. It's nice to be able to chat about things that I'm passionate about, and I hope other people enjoy listening to me talk about these things. Hopefully what I will be doing is kind of talking through a couple of months worth of books at a time, and then maybe in a different video I'll talk about what I'm knitting and yeah, all sorts of stuff. Where's my little list? I made a little list. Let's just flick back. Oh, and yeah, you may know if you follow me on Instagram that I've gotten very into journaling and planning this year. So I would like to share things about that as well. To do with I do daily journaling. I'd like to maybe do flip throughs of my journal so you can see kind of things I record and like how I lay stuff out, or if that's interesting. Yeah, and then yeah, stuff about knitting and yarn, and maybe acquisitions. If I haven't bought any yarn for quite a long time actually, but if I do, I would probably share that in a video as well. So yeah, thank you so much. See you soon. Bye.